Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Jules from the Corpus Christi Songwriter Podcast, one of the hosts, man. This episode is pretty special. I'm flying solo in it, and I'm interviewing Jeff Plankenhorn and Michael O'Connor. If you're in the area and you listen to music, you probably have heard of these guys. They're pretty cool. I was pretty honored to hang out with them. But the reason why I'm kind of jumping in ahead of the episode's beginning is because I want to let you know that this whole conversation was also made into an article for Space Magazine, that really cool magazine you can find at House of Rock that is run by Taylor. It will be published in the March edition. And so if you want like a compressed version of this, you can go read about it. I hope that you take that in addition to listening to this conversation. I took some photographs of Jeff and Michael out at the Rockport Songwriter Festival back in November, and I used those for the article. And so I'm really excited. It's the first time I'm going to be published in Space Magazine. It's a wonderful magazine that I think that if you're in the area, if you're part of the local Corpus Christi scene, you should definitely check out next time you're at House of Rock. Find Taylor and ask her for one of those Space magazines, or you'd probably find them there. Just go to House of Rock. Ask somebody for Space Magazine, okay? Anyway, so here's the episode with me interviewing Jeff Plankenhorn and Michael O'Connor. All right, welcome everybody to the Corpus Christi Songwriter Podcast. I'm Jules, and I'm sitting here with Jeff Plankenhorn and Michael O'Connor, two esteemed songwriters, guitar players, musicians in the area. Jeff, no longer in the area, but is in the area quite a bit. You're in Canada these days, correct?
I like to be in the area as much as I can be in the area. I'm living on Vancouver Island in Canada. In BC, beautiful BC. But as of right now, I am in California. And I'm here for the month to do a couple of weeks of writing and a couple of weeks of gigs for whatever becomes the next thing I do.
Right on. That's cool. And Michael, where are you at right now?
I'm in San Marcos. I've been hanging out. I spend my winters down here in Texas playing gigs, and my summers I'm in Washington State.
Right on. Well, you guys have a new album, and thank you, by the way, for giving me a preview of that.
Well, thanks for checking it out.
Yeah, man. I listened to it right away when you sent it, and thankfully I had some waveform audio in there too, which was nice to have a little extra fidelity. But I figured, in this interview, man, you guys are going on tour together. This is your second album, correct, together?
Second one together, yeah.
Second one together, man. I listen to a lot of things when I listen to this stuff, as you guys do too, right? But the first thing that really struck me was your first track, If This Gun Could Talk. Filthy as the Rio Grande, calloused with greasy skins. It seems like If This Gun Could Talk is kind of telling the story of like the ruminations of like a battered woman or something.
Yeah, for sure.
And,
for sure.
Maybe you guys should talk about that song a little bit.
I just had this idea about a talking gun. I don't know where that came from. And me and Jeff, just like our first record, we just meet on Zoom, put a date with each other where we try to get together every Tuesday or whatever day we can and write songs till we have 10 of them. I think this is one of the first ones we wrote. Steve James, a great Texas finger-picking blues guitar player, had just passed away. We were talking about Steve, so it kind of has I can't play near like Steve did, but it has that kind of vibe that maybe Steve would have put on a song. And then we just made up a story about Little Lady and Bad Bill, and how she got her due on him,
Well, a long time ago too. I'm not sure if you remember this, Michael, but when I remember our friend Ben Balmer. So we were talking one day, and he said, "Jeff, you really need to write a sort of backwards version of Knoxville Girl."
Oh yeah, that's right.
And the idea was like, we got all these murder ballads where, the guy goes down to the river with his love, and for some stupid reason or another, it ends up being a murder ballad, and there's no, justice in it at all. And I was like, for years, I thought that was a really good idea. So when you mentioned it, I was like, oh, well, we'll finally get to do that thing, And I was like, Ben, why don't you write it? It's such a good idea. He's like, no, you should do it, And okay. I just love even more that we got to, kind of incorporate a little bit of justice. You know, when Michael writes about, the line about she's got the judge in her hand. Mm-hmm. The judge is a specific, type of gun. I'd never heard of that. I'm not in the culture, so to speak. But I was like, oh man, she's got the judge in her hand. Holy moly. Yeah. And, we needed to make, a guy that we know exists, that, and we wanted her to get some justice,
I mean, what it brings up for me is that y'all really followed like the architecture of a murder ballad, not just the inclusion of justice. Like I think about the, Little Sadie, right? Where even at the end of that, he says 41 days, 41 nights, 41 years to wear the ball and stripes. There's still a resolution of justice there. Yeah. There is a murder. And there
That's
is
a good point.
So like it seems to follow all of these sort of literary requirements to get there.
Not by design. But it's just also happened.
Right. And that's so funny, man. I mean, it's kind of like if you like redid Star Wars all of a sudden, you're like all the bad guys wear black, all the good guys wear white, all the sort of literary imagery of bad guys and good guys are there. So and what was interesting about it is that, I mean, it took me about halfway through the song, I realized that it was a murder ballad, realized that it was about the sort of internal contemplations of a battered woman, but also that it was a sort of feminist murder ballad in a way. In that, it wasn't Little Sadie where he guns down Little Sadie. It was like Little Sadie got hit by Bad Bill, and now she's got the judge in her hand. And I thought that was a wicked sort of inclusion to call the gun a judge as well, because, and I'm always a fan of like these personifications, I suppose, of inanimate objects. So it's kind of like the talking bass, but it's a talking gun in a way.
Yeah, it's kind of Twilight Zone a little bit. Western Twilight Zone or something,
Yeah, man. So kudos to you guys on that song, man. I thought it was really great. It was a really cool way to cheers, man. Now I think your like first 4 songs are about women. But you're kind of like...
That's true.
I didn't even notice. Yeah.
Well, yeah. Because I was thinking about I Love Your Motor. We'll talk about next, right? Sweet Irie. And then There Goes That Dream. Right? So I was like...
I guess so.
Yeah. So what I got out of... there's a real John Hyatt vibe coming out of this record.
That's super cool.
And I say John Hyatt because like I'm reminded of The Terms of My Surrender or something like that. Is the name of one of his last albums. And he's just like singing about how like I'm in this old garage, and I got my motorcycle and my heart's as heavy as a stack of Bibles and stuff like that. But with I Love Your Motor, it was like I wrote a few thoughts down. I was like, it's a sultry falsetto comparison of a beloved sports car to the curves of a woman. One I had a thought, I was like, maybe like the curves of a sports car. I've always thought about how like maybe the Stingray body of that car is kind of like a Stratocaster,
Sure.
And all these things are modeled for the feminine, it's from the male gaze. But I would say that
with good reason.
Beauty is where you find it. You
can certainly still be a feminist and believe in the radical notion that women are people too. Yes. And you can still have an appreciation for that form.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I thought that the I Love Your Motor, even when you take it slow, was a really, really great line.
Oh, thanks, man. We dig it. Yeah. What's funny is that came out of, I was particularly pushy at the beginning, which is, kind of my speed sometimes when I get excited about a project. And over the phone, I think I was in Yucca Valley last year when I was doing a placation, and Michael was like, no, man, it's cool. I was apologizing for being pushy. Tell me if I'm right on this, Michael.
You're right.
I was apologizing for being pushy, and he goes, no, man, it's cool. I love your motor, And I just was like, wow, I just loved it. And, when you're in, you hear a good friend say something and you go, that could mean so many different things. I love your motor, man. I love that you have that drive, and as we wrote, it just became a love song, took on a different light, but it started with, me being pushy as hell.
It started with my love for Plank, man.
And my pushy nature artistically. Some people just like to let it happen. I like to help it along.
No, I think that's a big deal, man. I think us making those dates with each other, like, okay, we're going to get together on noon next Tuesday and write a song. Not like we're hanging out trying to wait for inspiration or something to happen. So we make the appointment. We show up and we do the work, and then we have a conversation. And in that conversation, something said like, I love your motor. And then we write a song, So I think I've discovered as I've got older that I think writer's block is kind of bullshit. I think if you just show up and start writing, even if you sit down at the page and write, I can't think of what to write, then there's your first line, whatever. So I think making that appointment and keeping it a work ethic about it, that's how you get it done, man. That's how you get it done.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with polishing a turd,
No.
because it's just going to make your next writing that much better. It doesn't have to be on the album.
Exactly. It's an exercise. And
it's a joy,
Yeah.
I have written a ton of songs that I wish would come out and hopefully do come out someday, but might not because they don't fit the thing that we're doing. Michael and I have done lots of playing together in each other's bands, at each other's shows, as a duo, in other people's bands. We've even traded where like I was the side man in this band and then he became it, and then and vice versa, and played on each other's albums and written songs on each other's albums. After the first album where we said we're just going to sit down in a room, a couple of guitars, a couple of mics, and go for it and just, pretty much play the album. Mm-hmm. This one we decided we would just also write all the tunes together because it's such a joy for us to write. We've been doing it so long that, if something's not working, there's no hard feelings. We're just kind of like, okay, moving on. It's not precious. It's fun. It's enjoyable. It's fun. It's work, but it's fun.
Once you get a lot done when you have permission and security to unceremoniously sort of dismiss certain ideas in a way that isn't precious or isn't, you're right, man. It's, and it's hard to get that kind of working relationship, but you guys have done this for so many years together that I feel
25 years, man.
25 years, man.
Yeah, 24.
Yeah, man. I mean, that's a long time. And I would say, Michael, to your point about writer's block being bullshit, I feel like it's a weird couple. It's like a binary opposition in a way that like some writers wait for the song fairy to show up whenever the muse decides of their own accord to present themselves, and then other writers do the Stephen King approach. I think of someone like Ryan Adams who like sits at a typewriter and does this shit pretentiously in a way, in the same way that Stephen King wakes up every day and writes 10 pages no matter what. And they're two really different ways to go about the process. And I find that like, I'm more of the wait for the inspiration to come kind of approach, but there are times when that inspiration doesn't come. And so you got to go sit down for a while and kind of force that stuff out in a way,
Yeah. And if it's going to come anyway, then why not be playing music and writing while you're waiting on the show?
Right. Right.
That's right, man. I love that Stephen King book on writing. That's a gem. And that one did a lot for me. Read it a few years back, and I'm in a situation right now where it's funny. We were my wife and I were driving down, and I was feeling a little melancholy, and she said, "Oh, this always happens when you're about to make a record." And I said, "What?" And she's like, "Yeah, you kind of get this thing where you're not really sure of what direction you want to go." And she's like, "You're melancholy for a few days." And I was like, "Really?" And she's been with me so long that she knows that that's the case now, and it was really great to have her say that, because it kind of got me out of the funk a little faster, and say, oh yeah, well, I just need to put my antenna up and just, kind of be ready and pick up my guitar every day and pick up my notebook every day and see what happens, and not be scared to fail,
Yeah. I mean, it's, and going back to like how you said, the whole song started out by Michael saying something like, I like your motor. And,
he said, I love your motor, man.
Yes. So
because I'm driven.
Yeah. So I find that's oftentimes, I mean, I don't have a title list like guys in Nashville do, I have a page called Great Lines, and it's just like little witty, pithy aphorisms that I hear people drop every now and then that I collect, and stuff like that really triggers the writing inspiration. So when you're speaking about a situation where Michael just says, man, I love your motor, and that triggers something creative for you, what an amazing sort of thing when that happens between two collaborators as well. It's really something special, Can
I tell you another one that I love?
Yeah.
I didn't. Here's one that I didn't have anything to do with at all. Michael told me a story about a guy who was sitting at a bar, and he said something to everybody kind of in the bar under his breath, like, man, it's not that big a town, man. And he told me the story, and I was like, good God, you got to write a song about that.
Yeah.
And I don't know, maybe a half a year later, I heard him playing it. And Michael, what was it was the story of Somerville.
Yeah. Jules, this guy at this bar, man, all his friends are shooting pool, and he's sitting at the end of the bar, and they're all getting drunk, and his friends, I can overhear them. They're all telling him about his girlfriend. They're telling him that his girlfriend's sleeping with everybody in town. They're not really giving him a hard time. They're trying to like cue him into what's going on, And as they all walk back to the pool table, I hear that guy say under his breath, ain't that big a town. And I thought, man, that's a love song right there, waiting to happen.
that Ronnie Bowman song, that Lovers Hit Parade or something? It was like, I got a long way to go for I'm at the top of your list of your Lovers Hit Parade or something.
There you go. Same.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. I can think of a couple of George Clinton lines that have that in it too. I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding.
Yeah. So tell me about Sweet Irie, man, because like what got me out of that was that, and this is the third song on your record here. Sweet Irie, I thought was a love song from the perspective of a vagabond who is taking in and expressing his affection with the sensibilities of a stray dog.
That's amazing, man. We need to write our liner notes for the third record, dude.
Yeah, when we were recording, Michael, what did Gabe say about this song? It was just perfect.
He said, give me a song about a woman cooking a man something to eat.
Yeah, man.
See, like we go from feminism to, that in the matter of two songs.
I think he's completely grateful. He's not telling her to make him something to eat. Yeah.
I think so too. He's right. I hope so.
I was watching some documentary on, I love to watch this old footage, Les Banks and stuff, just old videos of years ago. And someone was interviewing this old couple. Her name was Irie, and that's what her husband said. She's been so good to me. She cooks me what I eat, And so I just wrote that down like you were talking about in your book. And the next time me and Jeff got together, we cooked up that tune,
Yeah.
But yeah, he's definitely in the song. The guy's definitely, she's rescuing him, right?
Right. I mean, in some ways, all men are rescues,
Amen, brother. That's exactly what I'm saying.
So, yeah.
You had a lot more of that song when you brought it to me, though. I got to say, that's definitely one. Some of them we start from scratch, but Sweet Irie had so much of the meat of it. I remember being in Colorado and working a little bit on it and sending you some lines back and forth.
Yeah.
But
that always works well for us, too. If one of us kind of has a song, then that other listener's ear, the other writer's ear on it, change some words and get to the point quicker. Little things like that are always so helpful, man.
Yeah.
And it makes it so easy because then you can just kind of like, throw out a song and then not really worry about rewriting it till you get together with your co-writer, and then they kind of hammer it out for you, you know, because they have that perspective from the outside looking, you know.
And you trust them, and that's the other thing. It gives you confidence. I trust Michael. Like if I say, or if Michael says to me, "Oh no, you got to keep that line," then I don't think about it. It's very rare that I'm like, well, no, but I don't like it. You know, most of the time after all these years, you know, I'll be like, okay, I'll give it a second listen and listen to it with different ears, and it probably stays.
Yeah, because we get in our own way as writers, you know. So that's what I love about co-writing is, like you say, with someone you trust, kind of removes that doubt on stuff. And some of the stuff you're doubting, they're doubting it too, and you go, okay, I'm right to yank that out, you know. So.
Yep, definitely.
Yeah, man. So, Michael, did you have that song going on for a while before you brought it to Jeff?
No, maybe a couple of days.
Have I heard you perform that song before? As I felt like that was the most familiar one on this record.
We might have done it at the Rockport Songwriter Festival. Yeah,
right.
Matter of fact, we did. Yeah.
Okay. So that's why that song stuck out to me. I was like, I remember that line, and I think, you know, there's just something about that line, man, that like it's like you said, Jeff. You know, you go from feminism to that in a matter of a couple songs, but there is a real like gratefulness to that perspective. That's like a very. It's almost like Tao of Pooh, you know. It's like, you know,
nice.
Like, you know, it's like it's like when Piglet, you know, asks Pooh first thing in the morning. He's like, "Hey, Pooh, good morning. What are you thinking about?" And Pooh says, "What's for breakfast?" You know, and so like in a way, it's like, you know, she's so good to me. She cooks me what I eat. I'm paraphrasing there, but it's like,
yeah, that's it.
It's like just on a very basic one-to-one, basic human, food is love, sort of packing away of a very complex. It's a simplification that's beautiful of a very complex and rich subject matter, I feel like.
Well, and if you want
you
that
make
love
our song
back,
sound so great, man.
Oh,
yeah,
man.
you do. And if you want that love back, then you need to try cooking as much as you can, gentlemen.
Yeah, huh?
And clean the kitchen when you're done.
Yeah. Or do whatever it is that you do, man.
Right, roses please a woman if roses please a woman, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, man. So tell me about There Goes That Dream, man, because the first thing I realized is that a lot of these, like I think of you guys as a sort of pairing that's like a kind of like a Rob Ickes, Trey Hensley sort of combination where Jeff is shaking his head as you know Rob Ickes is just a total badass, and so is Trey Hensley for that matter, you know. So it's a I would say that sometimes those guys, I think they've done like a jazzy number, but groups that are like that are pairings that break from a sort of a typical dynamic that's proven successful to go into a jazz number, they sometimes they don't pull that off. But I would say that like Plank, you sound like a crooner on this track, you know. But I thought this was like a delightfully sort of melancholy number about like a dream of a woman and the nostalgia of a listful former lover, and some of the imagery that comes up, like in the beginning, the window pane line kind of reminds me of some like autumn leaves going on.
Sure, there's something like that. I mean, here's my take. If you're not on a label and you don't have management pushing you to have an album that's a certain way, you can do whatever the hell you want. And if the two of us are influenced by jazz and I start thinking about like old Joe Pass and Ella Fitzgerald duo records and a ballad comes out and it's like, well, you know what, let's pick up a couple of these guitars and see what we can do. And it comes out, then there's no reason we can't put it on. And really, you know, whether we have any business doing it, no, I couldn't tell you, but I like the way I love the way it sounded, and that's all that really mattered to me. And yeah, I mean, I'm sitting right in front of a window right now here in Paso Robles, California, and there's a little walk and there's a little sidewalk. And, you know, you think of a character who sees somebody who walks by every day, but he never talks to them. And he never actually, you know, gets up the courage. But in his mind, he's probably had an entire relationship, you know. I don't know that I've ever even been that person. but it just felt like a good character, you know? And what a shame it would be if he never got up the nerve, you know, to just say, hey, what's going on? You know, I don't know.
Right.
Maybe something like that, Michael. What do you think?
Yeah, and it's almost like his dream of her is, I mean, could she even live up to what he's created in his head too, you know? Jeff comes up with all those grown-up, beautiful guitar chords and changes, and I think one of the reasons, I think you're right, Jeff. Whether we should have done it or not, we'll let other people decide that. But I think it's important that we did it as songwriters because we can, you know.
Yeah, well, I think, I mean, obviously you guys pulled it off. I thought it was great, man, and you know, I especially loved that the metaphor is not really made clear until about the second verse kind of thing, where it's like, you know, it's like, there goes that dream. It could be anything. It could be a lost potential. It could be, you know, but, and then I was like, oh, you know, this is the fourth song about a woman kind of thing, you know? But yeah, this is, you know, that dream of a woman sort of thing is something that I just, I don't know. I think I really appreciated this song, both for like the that you took it in the jazz direction, that it sort of paid homage to some autumn leaves, but also like brought something that was highly abstract, like a dream, down to like a person, you know, like that a dream itself could take the form of a person. And so that allows the listener, at least in my mind, to like imagine their own dream of a person inside of the narrative of this song.
No, I think it's better also that you say person, because it's definitely a song that could be sung by a woman. It could be sung about anybody. And I kind of find that in this day and age, the last thing I want to do is feign wokeness.
Sure.
Because but to have something where it's not particularly gender specific is just always kind of like in the back of my mind. And why not make it something that anybody can get into regardless of how they feel or who they love?
Yeah. I mean, I would say I'm probably bringing a lot of my own gaze towards this, man, but I would say that there are certain artistic, you know, there's a reason why courtly love was a thing, right? And maybe that's what we're talking about a little bit here, is that the character inside of There Goes That Dream, she is a dream because he's never made contact with her. And yet he is practicing something like, you know, courtly love, where he imagines and flexes his own poetic muscles from afar. And that was the very content of courtly love. It was never meant to have an interaction. It was meant to be something you created in your own mind, to exercise your own romantic sensibilities. And so I sensed a lot of that out. Like the dream would have been broke. It's almost like, don't go talk to her, bro. Please don't go talk to her, because then this whole song doesn't work if you even interact with her.
Yeah, that's a unique perspective. That's a unique perspective. Well, and that's the other thing too. You kind of have fun walking the line of, do I put in descriptive stuff so people can see it, or do I put in so much that they can't put themselves in it?
Right. Yeah.
I like to find, you know, a balance. In some songs you go one way, and some songs you go another. Luckily, both Michael and I, and you yourself, Jules, we got a lot more songs in us. So we can do one way and one the next.
Amen.
Yeah, man. So,
hey, just one more thing. Jeff does sing that song beautifully, man. So beautiful. So beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you, fellas.
But Jeff, you also, I mean, just to toot your horn for a little bit, brother. The last time we talked, you were doing some translations and singing in other languages, and you're like a trained opera singer. Is that correct?
I had moments of that in my youth, and did some college stuff. And I was a boy soprano, and I sang in a lot of languages when I was a kid. And people should know that does not make me fluent. It means you work very, very hard on the translations, and you work very, very hard with people who know what they're doing. And then you can sing in French, and then you can sing in Italian, and then you can sing in German and such. But yeah, for the last Alone at Sea album, I decided that I'd do a version in Spanish and a version in French, and worked really, really hard on the translations with friends, with Alex Ruiz from Del Castillo and Nico Leofant for the French stuff. I was just talking to somebody before this interview, and the world is getting smaller as it's getting bigger. And we're very isolationist in the States. We tend to think that there's just one way when there's this plethora of things. When I went into the store yesterday and I heard Spanish over the loudspeaker for the customers, I felt more at home because it was not just one thing. I liked it.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I mean, I feel like, I guess it doesn't help that we're surrounded by two different oceans, and we have this sort of insular culture that exports itself across the globe to where we, I don't know, at least in the minds of Americans, there's a certain tendency to imagine the rest of the world as homogeneous, as like just sort of the same strip mall here as it would be everywhere else. And, just a little bit of travel breaks you out of that mentality, I feel like. Even something as simple as like understanding that the drywall sort of gradually disappears as you make your way to the Northeast. Where they
that's a good example. Or that there's no basements in Texas.
Right, man. Like, come on, guys. Like, yeah, I mean, culture and
Southern
traveling and all that shit, man. It's like, it's necessary to grow you as a human being. And at a certain point, like,
it helps a lot.
It helps, man. It's a little bit of field. Let's, man, I want to say, the harmonies in Hard As I Try, the fifth song on your record, man, so good, dude. So good. Like, I really enjoyed those harmonies popping in. And it's a really like a feel-good song, I felt like. Like, it just left you with a sort of joyful affect after listening to it. So you could actually, I felt like parts on this record, you could tell that you guys are really having fun playing together too.
For sure, man. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
It's good to hear that it comes through.
Yeah, we're having fun, and with Gabe too, with Gabriel Rhodes, who we record with, and we're all friends, and it's relaxed, and we're having fun, no doubt, man. I'd do it every day if I could get away with it.
Tell me about Gabriel Rhodes for a second, man.
Tell him, Jeff.
Well, he was originally known for being, the son of famous Texas songwriter and singer Kimmie Rhodes, but in his own right, from producing, from playing guitar on records, being sort of adjacent and slightly in the Willie Nelson kind of family. He's worked on so many different things. He's such a good writer himself. He was a really, really great choice for both of these records to go and record with. And I talked to him the other day, and before anything could come out of my mouth, he said, "Man, I love this record," and there's a lot of records that, and to no fault of their own, engineers, especially, not so much producers, hopefully, but engineers, work on, and it's like, okay, well, they're doing their job, but for him to, engineer this and be like really into it and really a part of it, and then to love it, sort of meant a lot to me. Gabe's sort of in the same school of myself and Michael, also in that he could be a really, really solid side person for somebody. He could go out and do his own thing, but then on top of it, the things that Michael and I don't do particularly well, and if I can speak for us, Michael, I can't engineer. I am not an engineer, and that is an art form that I am no good at. I can do little stuff. I can send out, remote recording, and I'm knowledgeable in the studio, and I love being in the studio, and I'm quick and I have fun. But if you put me in Pro Tools and ask me what plugin to use on this channel and what bus is where, it's Greek. It's gone.
Yeah, I don't do that either.
And he's amazing at it.
The way we made these two records too, just without a lot of overdubbing or anything, just kind of playing live in the room. That's kind of Gabe shines in that kind of environment too. He's fearless with recording that way too. He's not uptight, that there's not a click, and that everything's not separated. We're bleeding into each other and we roll with it. And that's kind of what these are about. And that's perfect for Gabe too, because that's his style a little bit,
Well, I think I've mentioned this on a previous episode where, like, what changed my overall philosophy to something more as an engineer by trade, I would say that I had an hour-long meeting back in like 2006 or 7 with an engineer, Jacquire King, who did a Norah Jones record. At the time when I met him, he was out of doing the old school Modest Mouse stuff, and that's what I knew him for. And
nice.
So like the Moon in Antarctica, A Long Way to Drive with No One to Think About, all those records, and he did all the Kings of Leon stuff.
Oh, great.
Yeah. So Jacquire, I mean, I was green, I was a little wet behind the ears, but I just come out of Reba McEntire's place as an engineer, and I was talking to him about a Quad 8 console, which is an old school. None of that's necessary. What's necessary is that Jacquire was like, listen, bro, you're fresh out of school and you think that you got to put everybody in separate rooms and you got to ISO everybody and give everybody headphones and everything's got to be pristine. And that's not the way the world works. And bleed is your friend. And you just are not doing that. And you're not even in this headspace, And I mean, he said a lot of, he had a lot of what I refer to lovingly as like callous wisdom,
Mm. That's a good way to put it.
But I would say that fundamentally shifted my mentality and philosophy around recording to where I've never made a record in those pristine and sterile things like that ever again. I like you guys. I mean, I have a record that I released recently that's just 2 guys in a room, no click, nothing like that, right? And
good for you, man.
You know what, man? It took me. I was sitting on that record for like 5 years because you just, as an artist, that in today's sort of congested media environment of content and continual sort of output, man, there is part of you that feels that what you're contributing can be inadequate in some ways, and but it also, like, after a while, you just have to sort of sit with that. I mean, at least for me, and I'm speaking to my process here, I would say what scared me was releasing imperfection. Now, I understand that I haven't talked to a single artist ever who's listened to one of their records they've released that hasn't said that they have one thing that they regret about it, But I may be the only person that I can say that I went through a process with a record called Mountain Time where I made sure that I wouldn't have even a singular regret. And it turns out my biggest regret is the way that record lacks in a certain feel that you just omit entirely with the click and building tracks from the ground up by yourself, even if you fill them out with a rhythm section later. So there's like a certain stiffness and adherence to a grid that must take place in order to build it that works against you in the long term.
The great young fiddle player Warren Hood put it like this. He said, the musicians who learn how to read music and sight read and can tell you theory could learn a lot from the ear musicians.
Yeah.
He said, but the ear musicians could probably use a little bit of theory too.
Amen.
And here's the thing. It's the same thing with recording, because if you learn your craft and then choose not to, it's a lot better than just going in there and doing whatever, Yeah. And so there's a level of, do I want to make this, the term organic gets thrown around a lot. Mm-hmm. And well, what does that mean, organic? Does that mean we just went in, a bunch of people, and played? Or did we also make use of the technology? And did it go too far in one direction or another? And you just want to find whatever that sweet spot is for you. Because I'm telling you, man, there are a lot of great albums out there that don't have one acoustic instrument on them. Or there's tell me that a Peter Gabriel album does not sound organic. Yeah. It sounds organic. It sounds played. It sounds musical. But there's not a lot of, besides the voice, and it's processed quite a bit, and they're brilliant. So, everything can be pushed in one direction or another, and it's just, what makes good art for you.
Peter Gabriel's the kind of guy that does the hardest shit and makes it seem like, let's just make an album with no cymbals. And Jerry Murata's like, yeah, sure, I'll just keep time. Right? And I know this because I was, like people like bands like the Security Project with Trey Gunn playing the stick, and, Tony Levin attending those shows. They're a Peter Gabriel cover band that does it exactly like the album. Like, so when you bring up Peter Gabriel, it's I don't know, it just strikes a funny, familiar chord with me, brother. But yeah, like the term organic, what the fuck does that mean? What are we talking
Or
about?
whenever somebody says in the studio they want it to sound warm.
Yeah,
What the hell does warm mean? It means something different to everyone, and that's fine, man. You know, but those things also help too. It's also good, like if you have an engineer who has particular songs, like I've been in the studio and said, you know, I really want this to sound like the demo of You Left the Water Running by Otis Redding, you know, because I love the way that sounds. And we had no idea, and I couldn't get it. We couldn't get it because there was a lack of, you know, knowledge of that thing, and even pulling it up and listening to it and that kind of thing. Nobody got it. Didn't happen. Came out sounding like Delbert McClinton, and there's nothing wrong with that. but you know, sometimes having the familiar that you work with is also unspoken, or you know. I mean, here's the other last thing I wanted to say. If Bruce Springsteen has imposter syndrome, then none of us have to worry about the fact that we get it.
Yeah.
You know, if he feels like an imposter, then, you know, the rest of us can go, okay, then it's natural.
Right. So, y'all had me laughing out loud, man, with a song called Lucky Fool. And you just brought up a fiddle player, Michael. And this song seems to be a song about a fiddle player that's, you know, that's just basically living the life, you know, and he says something like, I'm in love with the world and that ain't no crime. That's such a beautiful sentiment, you know, like, but the part that made me crack up was a couple lines like saying like, I ain't much of a fiddler, but this ain't much of a band. And I lost my horse, but they left me a mule. It's like, man, there's like, I don't know, I'm hearing like Don Quixote references in there, you know, like the Sancho Panza thing of like
he's definitely that kind of character.
Yeah, I like that. That's cool.
Right? Yeah, man.
He's tilting at windmills. We should have put that in there. You know, those first two lines were all Michael. You know, and I think Michael, you might even fought me on the mule line, but
yeah, I didn't get it at first, but I love it. I love it.
Yeah, that's how that happens sometimes. But you know, you just get a character. Yeah, I don't think that character's living the dream. I think he's living his dream, whatever that is.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah,
he's funny, man.
Who doesn't want to sing about that guy? You know, whoever that guy is.
I love that guy, dude. But I wouldn't want him in my band.
I wouldn't either. Oh, that's so much fun, you know.
It's so
Can't
funny,
wait to play that one out.
The next song after that was Thinking About You, and I feel like that song, I don't know why, but I was like, if there's going to be like a funkier song on this album, it's probably going to be Thinking About You. Can you talk about the song Thinking About You and kind of, does that song seemed a bit more, or not more or less, but it was an upbeat song. It is an upbeat song that like I sound like you guys were having fun during the recording of that too, you know?
I'll let Michael tell more about this one, but I'll say 3 words: Sarah Elizabeth Campbell.
Yeah, she was a lot of fun, and we lost her years ago, and she was just man. There's not words. She was a badass, man. She was just a badass in every way you could be a badass. I loved her so much, man. And I'd written a poem about her, and when we got together to write one day, I just read the poem to Jeff. Sometimes I'll just read a poem. I did that with Gabe a while back too, working on a song. Not to necessarily make the poem into a song, but just a jump off start point, you know. And so we wrote that for our friend Sarah Elizabeth, man, and every word's true in there, man. She was an amazing, amazing person, man, and human and songwriter and singer. And I can see her face right now, man. She was cool.
My first experiences with her were at like Folk Alliance conferences and stuff. And if you're listening to this podcast and you don't know what Folk Alliance is, you know, all these people rent out rooms in a hotel and have gigs from like midnight to 4 a.m. And I just remember Michael and me and Sarah Elizabeth Campbell and all these incredible songwriters that would get kind of fed up with I mean, it's a really, really wonderful thing, those festivals or those conferences, because they bring people together and they get gigs and this and that. But we'd be in the stairwells, Matt the Electrician, Susan Gibson, Slade Cleaves, all all of us would be in the stairwells in between shows, sitting there and playing songs with no pretense, just playing songs because we love to play songs. There are a lot of places that we would still do that, but it was a big comeuppance for us. And I'd see her like at Strawberry Festival, or I'd come see Bummer Night at the Old Arts Rib House. She had a thing called Bummer Night where you were only allowed to play bummer songs. And it was fantastic. And everyone came, you know. But she was just a really beautiful person that Michael and I both had a lot of love for and loved hanging out with. And
yeah,
simple as that.
So check her out. You can find her music on YouTube and stuff. Sarah Elizabeth Campbell. Go see her face and hear those songs, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. So, bummer song. It's not much of a bummer. Melancholy and D. So I love your new record, and I listened to this record, and I paused.
Sounds like there's a butt coming.
No. There's no but. No? It's just not. What it is that I thought I was doing a really good job resisting the urge to listen to any of these songs a second time as I made my way through this album. My intention was to make my way as a full album listen.
Gotcha.
But I couldn't make it through Melancholy and D without listening to that song again. And,
nice.
And that's an instrumental song. And I mean, it's just like a soulful and sincere instrumental. And I felt like it contained a couple, like it had all the loneliness you'd only receive out of a slide instrument, combining with like the cadence of your finger picking, Michael, that like, I mean, it's really just a beautiful song. And
Thanks,
so when I say that I had to repeat that again, it was just because like the sort of soulful melodies that were happening out of that. It's like, you know, it's like the imagery that comes from no words at all sometimes. You know, it's either the progressiveness of walking up, taking a hike up a mountain sort of thing. It's got like the imagery of like earthy, natural cedar trees sort of stuff. Like it's just like I listening to that song was it had all the things that I wish to inflect myself at a slide and acoustic instruments, you know?
Beautiful.
Yeah. So just my hats off and compliments on that song, particularly because it stopped me in my tracks and I had to listen to it again. So
beautiful. Thanks, man.
There's a couple of things, you know, when we get later towards the end, you know, there's a song that we sing together. And on both albums, we kind of trade off, like Michael does a song, I do a song, Michael does a song, I do a song, for whatever reason, you know.
Yeah.
Just kind of nice to balance out the show that way too. It's like the show's that way. And since we were doing a duet song, I noticed every time I made a list of the songs or I started thinking about what else we needed, well, it wasn't going to balance out. And Michael had played this and I said, man, this just doesn't need words. It's just really, really beautiful the way it is. And this gives us an opportunity. It felt like an opportunity to put an instrumental on, which was something that...
Yeah, I'm glad we did too. I'm glad we did too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's gorgeous, man. It's, you know, and I would say that in like a weird way, it's like, you know, you go through a range of topics, you know, you go through like the sort of humility and gratefulness a man feels for what a woman does in his life, to admiring her as a sports car, to likening her to a dream, you know, all of these rich subject matters that we've heard before, but are really good and we don't tire of them. Right. And then the song that I feel like affected me maybe the most out of this entire record was Melancholy in D. Wow. And you call it melancholy, but it's not necessarily a melancholy affect. I mean, I know there's a happy and sadness mixed in there. It's almost like a rebirth after some sort of tragedy where a new possibility opens and there's hope and restored once again sort of feeling, you know? But yeah, like I just, in listening to that with there's a certain loneliness that comes out of a dobro that you can't find in other instruments. And then...
Well, if I have to be, you know, serious, it's an Oahu.
Yes, it's an Oahu. Yeah, I mean, but there's something about, you know, D-A-D-F sharp A-D on those instruments as well that has a depth and a warmth and we just, talked about those words, right? But like there is
Sure, like a Weisenborn.
like a Weisenborn, but I just heard like a depth and a gravity of an unspoken but clearly understood sort of like, this is how life is, this is how the planet is, this is how your journey is, this is how I don't know, this is the richness of life containing all parts of it. Like the sort of melancholy aspect you're getting to is that sort of deeply felt affect that you come away with after this. Like life is hard, man, but there's still beauty and hope and insight, and the entire song lands on you in a hopeful sort of way. So, I'm speaking a lot about your instrumental here, and I'm taking a lot out of it that you clearly didn't say out of that music, but I took a lot from there, and like I said, I had to pause and listen to that again, and I really enjoyed that piece. So
thank you guys
for
thank you, man.
It
sounds like you heard it, man. Right on.
I thoroughly enjoyed it, man. So I think there's 2 more songs here, right? Have Heart Will Travel. How old is that song?
Maybe about a year, but we we finished it. Let's see. I think we finished it we started writing it in January or February of last year. And then, went through a few changes. I just kind of started that one with the idea of not necessarily have it being about a traveling musician, but be about anybody who travels.
Yeah.
And gets the benefit and the hardness. I find that too many road songs are about the bad parts and not the good parts, like we were talking about earlier. And I also think that people don't give their audiences enough credit. And that's why the line about people seeing the shine in your eye, but they can spot a deceiver. I'm of the opinion that when you go up there and you do your thing, a discerning audience tends to know, it's different when you're in front of a stadium.
Sure. Yeah.
But if you're in a 100-seater or you're in a 40-seater, they can smell bullshit.
I think audiences are experts at sniffing that stuff out, man. I've always felt that, because why else as a writer would you have the instinct to not cringe at your own stuff when you can't sell it, Like if it's not, as an artist, to be an artist, I mean, it's like you got to have some weird personal system of morals to do things that you cringe at, that are inauthentic, that don't accord with who you are as an artist in order to create a monetary flow, right? I mean, that's the concept of selling out, and that's the concept of being fake. And so, I've also had a problem with it. Sorry to interrupt, but I've also had a problem. I had someone point out to me that I trust a lot. I was kind of listening to somebody, and I was getting pretty, hey kid, get off my lawn about it. You know what I mean? And I felt kind of like an old fart who was complaining about something and thinking that somebody was authentic. And the person pointed out to me, well, no. Maybe that person had finally just found themselves. And maybe that's the more authentic them. And it was so great for me to hear that, because, you start to think that, you can tell and sure.
but you don't, and whether or not it gets across to people is more important, and just being able to, the more I take myself out of it, the better. And so very, very simply just saying, have heart will travel. It's just like, that's the recipe.
Yeah.
For me.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, I took from this, like, I felt like not so alone all of a sudden being a musician myself that like knows that is the recipe, as you say, like it's like, you walk around this world with like an exposed heart on your sleeve that necessarily needs to stay there so you can absorb the things you must in order to write the things you need that affect people, that like we take this task upon us and sign up for it. And if we're not willing to do that, then we're not going to be very good at what we do. And so Have Heart Will Travel, the sort of built-in weariness that comes with a road song, was a beautiful sort of sentiment to describe the sort of emotional attrition that happens on you over the decades, you know. Michael, you just shared a really great poem recently that I thought a lot of, called, I don't remember what it was called, On the Road at 50, I think is what it was called.
Broad Picot, On the Road at 50. Yeah, that's a good poem, huh?
That's a really good poem, but like, you know, somehow I've taken that poem and like conflated this song in a couple ways, you know, like I feel like
we've definitely gone up and down the same roads as Rod, me and Plankenhorn for sure.
Yeah.
I love Rod's writing, man, as a songwriter, and more so, I love his songwriting, but I'm excited about his poetry and his novels, and I mean he's an amazing writer. It's been cool to watch Rod just really work hard as he has to get those words on paper, you know. Yeah, and On the Road at 50 is a beautiful poem. Yeah.
I mean, so I don't know, to hammer on this a little bit more, man, I would just say that I thought it was a brilliant, you know, sort of Have Heart Will Travel is 4 words that, like, you know, it's kind of like, what was, I think that they asked Hemingway to come up with like the saddest story ever told in 4 words or something, and he said something like, for sale, baby shoes never worn.
Yeah, that's awesome.
You know, so like, yeah, so that little small encapsulation of Have Heart Will Travel is expansive the more that you think about it, and I thought that the music for it and the sort of strumming pattern that's happening behind it, or the finger picking pattern that kind of imitates a sort of cadence and march in some ways towards, like, it's like, yeah, I'm traveling, I got a heart, and this is hard, and I love it. Yeah, and I guess one more thing that I would say on this, man, and this is a little abstract, man, but I would say that it's an incredibly masculine, toxically masculine notion to think that one should live through this world and remain unscathed, like as if the world itself would not create marks and impressions upon you, and then to deny those marks and impressions as if they didn't bother us, as if these things don't mold us and attribute our shape to how this world will shape us, you know? It's like a weird denial of one's own humanity. And so in many ways, there are like strikingly honest sort of lines in this record. And the honesty is like, I mean, you can take it at whatever value you want for this stuff, right? Whatever degree. Have Heart Will Travel, you'd be like, oh, that's a sweet line. Or you could be like, oh, shit, he's talking about loneliness of the road. Or you could think about how, you know, the road has created marks upon you. And we see these people travel every day, and there's a reason why road worn is an expression, and those signs are often not entirely visible. So, yeah, I had some deep thoughts about this song and the sentiment, and I really appreciated it. As two musicians writing this about their own experiences, I really appreciated that as well from you guys. So
thank you, man.
Yeah, man.
Thank you.
Jules, can you call me every morning and just give me a little pep talk, dude?
Brother, let's do it, man.
Financial arrangements we need to work out, we can figure out. But.
Well, you know, dude, I will tell you, man, that like, you know, you bring up like Don Quixote, or I brought up Don Quixote earlier of stuff, you know, like, you know, when you say I lost my horse, but they gave me a mule, like there's deep literary shit in that, man. Like even going back to like the horse of Don Quixote, whose name was Rocinante. Rocinante means like a horse that used to be a workhorse. Like it's too old to be a workhorse now. So this concept of like road wornness and is consistent through your album in ways that I picked up on as a listener that speak to me. And so I just, if you guys were not aware of the way that, I mean, sometimes I feel like that's the job of a listener, is to like be like, hey, just like, you know, I'll tell you this, like my I discovered recently that my mother saves her passwords for websites as a contact entry in her phone with the password as their phone number. Okay. And so what happens, I bring that up as a comical thing, but it's meant to illustrate the point that even when you invent technology, your consumers and users of your technology will inform you as to how they are using it.
Yeah.
And
I like
and
that. Yeah.
so as a listener, I'm like, hey, y'all, you're speaking to me in ways that I wish for you to know about, because they're heavy and deep and rich and colorful and I just, I got a lot out of this record, man.
Nice, man. That's,
yeah,
I mean,
brother.
You can't ask for anything more than that. I mean, hopefully we put it out and it's somebody listens to it and gets a million things we didn't think of. That's part of the goal too. It's not to like tell a story and have everybody get it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, if you did that, then, and God, I certainly, when I listen to a record, I think of myself as the character of the song often, or there's just so many ways to do it. So, it's not yours anymore. Once you put it out, it's everybody's,
Yeah.
Now I'm not saying that the copyright's theirs, but I am saying that the song takes on a new life that you had no idea once it's out there. And also, I'm not very good at knowing which song is going to be the one that people latch on to, or the ones we don't know.
True.
Right.
So true.
Right. Yeah. I mean, this is a really good record in the sense that like every song is substantive, man. Like there's not a filler song on this record.
That's good to hear.
There's not only not a filler song, even the instrumental hits in its own way that like it's, clearly worthy of inclusion. So, when I thought about this record, as an engineer, there's certain things that come to mind, like track order and how the album flows is really important to me in terms of a listener experience and what I think about and judge during the process of creating a record. And so my process, which I don't know if you guys did something similar to this, but my process is pick the song that you're going to start with and then go up or ascend in keys from there.
I've never thought of that.
Like, so that way, like if you have something in A, you're going to start something in like C sharp next or something,
we used to do our set list that way years ago when they had the horn section and stuff.
Yeah,
we'd start in E and then just plow up.
Right. And the other thing is that you have to, for set lists and obviously for records too, but maybe not to the degree that I commit thought towards in terms of a set list generation versus a track order. There's an energetic variable that one has to within a set list, so depending on where you want to include your banter, where you want to drop off and go really slow and pick back up, when is it time to just cut loose at the end of the set, like stuff like that for sure. But the reason why I bring all that stuff up is because from song to song on your record, there was some thoughtfulness that happened that put these in a really good order.
We put all the names in a hat and pulled them out. I'm kidding.
Right. Yeah, but no, even because there's a whole process to listening to a record, right? By the time you get to song 7 or song 8, it's like, is this another 1-4-5? Is this, and you're like, oh, surprisingly, no, this is a 2-5-1. Oh, great, cool. Okay, there's a jazzy number in there, and they pull it off. Okay, and it, depending on how that goes, it depends on I'm going to listen to tracks 8 through 10, right? And so, like, not necessarily I was going to give it a full listen to give it a full evaluation, but the common listener, I feel like, around song, we're dealing your record's 30 minutes long, which is, in my mind, an ideal time frame for our contemporary human attention spans. I feel like, as well.
For sure.
So, but your record, from song to song, from start to finish, hits in such a way that there's a matter of thoughtfulness that's apparent in the track order, in the way they land upon the ears. And I took a lot from every song. There weren't any fillers, and I'm just very, very happy to have had to listen and to have received this record. And it's a re-listenable record as well. That's another thing that I think about is like, can this record be listened to more than once? And I think what greatly helps with that is the you can feel that you guys are having fun playing together on this record. And that's part of the challenge, is like, that's the whole reason why Nashville has their whole system, right? Is like, we want to capture the magic of people in a room making eye contact. Like that's what makes a record have that feeling come through. And that feeling is visceral. It's salient on this record, man. And I really enjoyed it. So I can't say enough positive things about it, guys. Yeah.
Thanks, man. This has been really fun.
It means a lot.
All right. So guys, we're playing in Rockport. Is that March 16th? Is that correct?
14th.
March 14th. That's a
Thursday.
And it's a Thursday night, March 14th. We're playing at a little thing that John Macy throws together called the Inn at Fulton Listening Series, or the Harbor Room Listening Series. I'm not really sure what John calls it. Sorry, John.
Harbor Room.
I'm hoping we sell enough tickets that we have to take it outside to the tent.
Yeah, we want to go to the tent, man.
That's right. Yeah, man. So are you guys, clearly you're playing cuts off of this record that night.
Yeah, it's funny. We both have enough stuff that now that we've done this, I find that when I'm playing the gigs with Michael, I could very easily play the whole gig and just play things off of these two albums that we have made together. Nothing to Prove and New Sunlight. But there's the title track from my latest album. I love the way Michael plays on it, and so we'll sneak in a few other ones. And I can't imagine playing a song and not having Bernadine be.
Yeah, listeners are going to want to hear certain songs too. I hope. So.
Yeah.
But it is nice to have two albums to lean on.
Oh yeah. When is this album's release date?
I think that we're going to start selling pretty soon, Michael, on pre-releases and pre-orders.
Pre-sales this Friday on Bandcamp. You can pre-order the download, and
Friday
you can pre-order the record.
Yeah,
and then it'll probably be officially out. Our first gig that we play together, we'll call that the official release, and that will be
March 13th. Yeah, at the Rose Room and the Rose Chapel in Fort Worth.
That's right.
Yeah, we'll do Rose Chapel, and then we'll do the Fulton thing, the Bugle Boy in LaGrange, gig in Austin, a gig in Sun City. There's some other stuff going on.
Devil's Backbone and Fisher.
Devil's Backbone, that's right.
Yeah, man. Well, guys, I'm stoked about the record. I had a listen last night and had some thoughts about it, and I didn't expect it to be so generative because it's just a couple of guitar players hanging out, but it's a lot of fun, and it's as deep as you want it to be. It's as rich as you want to go, and deserving of several listens, man. I mean, it's a really feel-good record. Like, I came away feeling like, uplifted after listening to the record as a whole. So
I'm uplifted after you're listening to it.
No doubt. I hope everyone feels like Jules does.
Oh man. Well, dude, I'm not bullshitting you, man. Like, I'm a harsh critic when there's criticism to be delivered, man. I mean, I can be condemning, and this is a great record. So I just, I'm happy to talk to you guys. Thank you for making the time to hang out and talk about this, and we'll put this on the podcast feed. I've had a lot of fun in this conversation. I won't end this episode with Jimmy's what do you love about music question, because I feel like that's his thunder, and I'm not going to steal his valor. But Jeff, we definitely owe you an appearance, man, a solo appearance on the podcast sometime. And so we'll send you a message or something about that and get you on the pod, man.
Well, I really enjoyed and listened from the road. I can't remember where I was, but I quickly after it came out, maybe the day it came out, I listened to your guys' interview with Michael and really enjoyed it. So I'd be more than happy to.
Awesome. All right, guys, I'm going to let you go. Thank you so much for hanging out for a bit. And
thank you, Jules. Can't wait to play with you, man.
Yeah, man. Ditto. Same here.
Peace, Jules. Thank you, buddy. Plank, I'll talk to you soon, man.